All right, hello and welcome to the F&B panel.
Is yours on?
I don't think it's on. Mike.
Hello.
You want mine?
Try again.
Try the heat gun thing.
Here, put this down. Is this better? Ah, there we go. Welcome to the F&B panel again. As you all know, restaurants are an integral part of retail development and one of the most active categories in the retail segment. They certainly drive traffic, to retail centers, but more importantly, they drive experiences within the communities that they serve. And that's one of the main reasons why I've been so excited about and passionate about working with restaurant brands, and I know a lot of you guys feel the same way. We have 4 powerhouse individuals up here today to talk about what they are currently seeing in the market within their own brands, what their growth currently looks like, what it looks like in the future, and what challenges they are facing and opportunities they see to attain their goals. There will also be some discussion on tips for tenant rep and landlord rep brokers when working with restaurant concepts as well, so I think y'all will find it very beneficial. So to start, I'm just going to make a quick few intros here. Our moderator today is Lane Cardwell. He's the president of Cardwell Hospitality Advisory, who has had a long and storied career in the restaurant industry. Lane has been on the senior management team or board of 44 restaurant concepts in a variety of segments, and on the board of directors of 14 restaurant and restaurant technology companies. And we are lucky enough at Falcon to have Lane as a board member on our advisory board as well. Admittedly, very small potatoes comparatively, but we still love it. So currently he is on this board of Sherry's, a West Coast family dining chain. He is also on the board of Free Flow Wines and Voice Star AI. He has been on the board of 4 public restaurant companies and was chairman of a Saudi Arabian restaurant group. Previously, he has been president of P.F. Chang's, CEO of Boston Market, and CEO of E.T.'s Market and Bakery. He's worked with over 100 restaurant presidents and CEOs, and also has done over, I think this is correct, 1,700 restaurant deals throughout his career, which is pretty impressive.
5 of them were good.
5 of them were good. That's great. John Plew. Right here to my left, co-founder and CEO of Thirsty Lion. Thirsty Lion is his growth concept. His company is called Concept Entertainment Group. He's successfully developed and operated 8 different concepts in the restaurant bar space over a 15-year period before founding Thirsty Lion. He's got 42 years in the industry, veteran innovator, brand curator. He had a cool COVID story by turning the company's Portland Grand Central Bowl into a central kitchen online food hall. So he was able to pivot there when things got a little dicey. As restriction eased, John successfully transitioned the bowling alley back into its entertainment roots while continuing expanding Thirsty Lion, which we've done here in Texas. And he's also growing in Arizona, continuing to grow in Oregon and Colorado. FSR named Thirsty Lion among its next-gen casual restaurants under 20 to watch, and also the 13 restaurant chains that defied COVID odds. The Hospitality Technology magazine presented an Industry Hero Award to Thirsty Lion for its forward IT integration, which is very cool. You're going to start seeing it in a lot of those companies in the restaurant field. It's I don't need to go into it now. Maybe John will in a little bit. And that is John Plew. Rian McCarten, CEO of Swig, to Lane's left. He is the CEO of Swig, which is the home of the dirty soda. Leader in the customized beverage category. It's delicious. If you haven't been, you should go. Rian joined Swig in September of last year after it was acquired by Larry H. Miller. Ryan's leadership has been instrumental during the company's explosive growth. He's got 55 corporate locations. They'll reach 70 by end of 2023, and they have 300 franchise units sold since the beginning of this year. So very, very explosive growth. Jack Gibbons, last but not least, on the far left here, CEO of FB Society, leads a dynamic team of industry professionals dedicated to creating, incubating, and growing innovative hospitality brands nationwide. He's got, he started at FB Society in 2008. He's played a pivotal role in introducing awesome brands to untapped markets. Under his leadership, FB Society has created a simple mission to create and execute experiences never imagined. Very cool. Filling a gap in the market and breaking traditional rules of hospitality. He's co-founded concepts like Twin Peaks, Velvet Taco, Whiskey Cake, 60 Vines, Mexican Sugar, Ida Claire, Haywire, Son of a Butcher, the Ranch at Las Colinas, and the Food Hall Company, which we'll be seeing today. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Lane so we can get started.
Thank you, Michael. Let's get kind of a baseline here in terms of growth. Let's start with you, Jack. In terms of restaurant openings last year, this year, next year, getting faster, getting slower, about the same?
I think we're gaining momentum. So we opened, our growth this year was 20% with by unit count. Probably most of that was on the 60 Vine side. Next year, thank you, Michael, we're going to do 40%. And that's a lot of that is Haywire, which will open 3 new units. So that brand will grow 100%. And we have a couple other deals in the pipeline that number 40% could easily go to 50 or 55. So.
But Ryan?
Yeah, sure. Is this the faulty one or the good one? Okay. That's okay. We'll share. We opened 9 corporate stores last year. We'll open 18 this year, so 100% growth. And then next year, we have 25 to 30 slated. But from a pipeline perspective, we're already working on 2025, early 26, 130, 150 units over the next 3 years. And that's just on the corporate side. So if we're talking franchise, another 16 states, 300 to 400 give or take, franchise units.
Pretty cool. John?
We are currently under construction with 2, and we're a smaller group. So, again, I think, we were talking about percentage. That's pretty important. Like, if you get over your skis in this business, especially the full-service category, I think anything over 30% gets a little wobbly operationally. Lane, you've opened a lot of restaurants, so we're kind of in the 20 to 25% range right now. And so we have 2 under construction right now, one in Addison that's going to open up on November 7th, and then one in Glendale, Arizona. It's a 2-story rooftop out by the Arizona Cardinal Stadium, and that opens in March. And then we're actually flying to Florida, so we're trying to make a jump to the southeast and open up that region. And we've been in Texas now for about 8 years. So
We love restaurants. It's our scenic beauty. You'll see that as you drive around. Let's stick with you, John. In terms of the development pipeline, how long does it take on the average, and is it getting longer?
yes and yes. We had a pre-meeting and everybody hit the same things. In fact, I was meeting with one of our landlords and they're like, well, gosh, you should have opened that restaurant up there in Addison. I said, well, gosh, if I could get the permits. I mean, we sat on the permit lines. We all pay for expedited plans, which doesn't expedite a whole lot. So, yeah, it's taking a little longer. We used to say 12 months from like LOI to open. And I think it's probably closer. You guys might 15 to 18 sometimes. So that's different for us. That's post-COVID. So we don't know. We talked about it. Is it a city thing? Are they trying to slow it down? Do they not have the resources? Or people from the city working at home and they're not as productive? We don't know why. And then we have challenges with supply chain still with electrical.
Yeah, we talked about the fact that some cities manage growth through bureaucracy by slowing down the growth process. They won't tell you no, but they'll let you starve. And sometimes it's hard to tell if it's lack of resources or if that's what it is. Ryan, about every 2 months?
Yeah, it's interesting. Ooh, this is like a sensitive one. Texas used to be like the glory state. And, I come from retail, so we went deep in Texas in every brand just because it was, you could move fast, expedited permits you could actually expedite them. And what we've found in the last post-COVID is, I don't know if it's due to a lot of growth coming from the coasts into Texas or what have you, but Texas has actually become a little more arduous, a little bit slower, a little more challenging, obviously expensive. We're still doubling down on Texas. It's not stopping our growth plans. But, I think we're through a lot of the supply chain constraints that COVID had with RTUs and some of the hardware overseas. We've also gotten a lot smarter. We inventory those now. We are keeping them, local. We want to continue to scale, and we don't want supply chain constraints and development constraints to be, in our court. But cities are absolutely slow. I think surprisingly so. And we waited on, electrical is still, I would say, a big hot topic. I mean, I hate paying dead rent. I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't sleep at night. And, we had a Phoenix location we paid dead rent on, shamefully, we'll say, for almost 3 months. And that's just, it can't be the norm, but it's starting to, you're almost performing some dead rent space in some of those supply chain constrained areas.
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree 100%. So some of the implications of all those things, I could speak to that, is just the cost of projects. You need to factor that into the overall cost of it. Building more time into the leases is a big thing right now, and then just timing, how it's just really messing up timing and really kind of making it more challenging. So, but a lot of it is, we'd say the same thing, it's the permits.
Let me add one more thing. I think, I work closely with Gabe and Michael, and I use the word opportunistic a lot because I want to always leave a buffer in the budget and in the pipeline to pull a trigger on a site if we have the ability to. But even being opportunistic with cash, you're not getting it open any faster. It's harder and harder to become more and more opportunistic with even just between legal, permitting, everything is taking longer. So it's not slowing us down, but it's definitely forcing realignment internally to plan further out.
At Brinker, we developed a list we called the Century List. It was 100 locations around the country that we would want to be in if it ever became available, that we would be willing to wait 100 years for it to become available. And we did that because one of the things that we kept asking ourselves is, well, how did they get that location? Well, they didn't know we were interested. So we developed a list that told everybody out there, this is where we're interested. The others are opportunistic, but we're waiting for somebody to bring us one of these 100, and we'll wait and wait and wait for it. But sometimes you have to let people know where you want to go, and that was our effort. Let's talk about economics. In the restaurant industry, there's a term called prime cost. Prime cost is your cost of sales, beverage and food, along with all of your labor. When I joined the industry, Norman Brinker told me, all you really have to know about being successful in this is you got to get your prime cost to 55%. If you can do that, everything else on the P&L will fall in line, your utilities, the deals you strike for real estate, et cetera, et cetera. If you can be at 55, you'll do well. Well, today that's 60. The industry's at 61, but the target that people would look to is 60%. That's 5 points gone. It's either found on other parts of the P&L or it's just gone. So what's been the trends for you guys recently on cost of sales, labor?
Yeah, for our brands and how we position them and how we create them, we try to always find a way to differentiate not only the physical brand, but our economic business model. For anyone that's eaten at 60 Vines, for example, this idea of wine on tap, not only is it sustainable, it gives you control over your inventory, there's a lot less waste, but economically it gives you a little bit more control over your product and really helps you produce better margins. So better margins are something that if a restaurateur is not focused on, I don't know if you want to represent him because he can't hire the best management teams, he can't invest in dynamic design, and he's not going to be as successful. And I think it's not talked about enough is margins matter. And if you're not creating a brand to actually have a better in-class business model, you're wasting your time because you can't scale right, you can't hire the right team, and it's a losing effort. So COGS matter, and I think finding a differentiation in the space that you're in and being creative about a business model is how restaurateurs and retail needs to go about it, because it's harder than ever, and it requires an edge or something a little different and unique to be able to do that today.
Yeah, I'd just add, labor is not getting any cheaper. I think we all know that. If you follow the news in California, I think that's horrifying to most restaurateurs and retailers. We're one of the lucky ones. We're still within that 55% prime cost, but we need that margin to scale. We are self-funded for the most part, and if you're on a pretty aggressive growth trajectory, you need that capital. The other thing John mentioned, we're constantly evolving our economic models. The cost of capital right now is egregious. So, how do you pencil development differently? And are deals even penciling? It used to be, return profiles looked a lot different than they do now. We just want our money back at this point. Much else in 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, it's just getting it back in, within a reasonable amount of time.
Return
of invested capital. So I think, margins are tighter than ever. Labor is going up. We're in the soda business, so our assortment is a lot narrower. We don't deal with meat. We don't deal with commodities like some of these other guys up here. But the money goes to good use, and it goes to scale. And, we're shifting a lot from the economic models. We're shifting occupancy cost up to get more dollars up front. We've been very strategic about, 5, 6, 7% occupancy costs. Now we're saying, look, we'll take 9 or 10 now, and we'll get $500,000 in TI, $400 in TI, and pay a higher rent because the cost of capital is, 10, 11, 12%. So.
Yeah, and I think when we, as a group, met, we really wanted to, explain to the brokers to understand the economics of the business, so that when we say, hey, we can't afford this number, or we need this much time, because nobody wants to step on a landmine. And so, Michael and I have traveled up and down the highways here for years, talking, but part of it's learning the model of restaurants. It's complicated, right? We have thousands of employees, so we have a lot of humans, and there's slim margins in the business anyways. People think you're making gazillions, and if you have a winner and you're doing high volume, which we all have, which is great, like Lane said, they're not all winners either, so the location is critical. The real estate is critical, and the cost. And, we talk to this all the time, like, we drive traffic. We used to be kind of the plague back in the 70s and 80s, and now we're part of the anchors, anchoring a development. It's critical to have the right restaurants, the right mixture, but the occupancy costs we've seen, anything new, we all talked about it, when they start getting 5s and 6s and 7s, and the first number makes it really, really difficult for a full-service restaurant. So we're shrinking to try to accommodate that, our footprint, turning them over faster. But that's some more about why we wanted to talk to you guys about the economics, so you understand when you're writing LOIs more about our business.
The irony in our business is, out of a $100 check, we'll keep about $5 of it, and the server will keep about 20. And they wonder who's crazy. This is an industry that's both labor intensive and capital intensive. Usually you pick one, not both. We're saddled with both. So on the investment side, how are construction costs trending? Going down?
No. I mean, you want to, I'll.
Go ahead, start.
No, I don't anticipate them going down anytime in the near future either. I mean, we're modeling out 3 to 5 years, always. And, we see a correction for sure, post-COVID. Materials, time, I think everybody has seen that. But there's also with inflation and rates the way they are, I mean, there's kind of a new reality we're living in. And hopefully it's not the reality for the next decade. But the fact of the matter is, it is the reality. And you have a decision to make as a leader of a brand. Is do you stop growing or slow growth? Or do you tweak the model and you press on the gas and you fit within the macroeconomic times that you're in? We're in a category that not a lot of people play in. There's a lot of white space for the taking. So there's no choice but to press on the gas. So you have to make development costs work and figure out. Now, would I like to open 60 stores next year? I mean, Gabe and Michael know the answer is yes. But from a capital perspective and development costs, and we do about a third, ground leases, stick builds from scratch. I mean, we do a 750 square foot building, not a lot to it, and it's $1 million. So you do 30 stores, ground ups, that's $30 million at 11% with 4% origination, and I only know that because I just got off the phone with our bank. And that's hellacious cost. So I think it's just important when you're representing us that you understand the headwinds that we're facing from a development standpoint, time, cost of capital. I mean, we're managing all of this internally, so landing the right economics is critical, the cash on cash is critical, and then having good development partners so that you can hit the milestones is critical.
Yeah, I think that we've actually seen a little bit of some light on construction costs coming down. Timber's really come down pretty substantially. And but on the whole economic model, I think FB Society is a little different strategy just because we have multiple different concepts. And kind of to what Lane was talking about earlier, we do not want to pass on iconic locations. Like we think, say we're talking about Texas, the growth that Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin are going to have over the next 5 to 10 years is where we have our eye on. So in these markets, I think I'll be kicking myself if I don't land an iconic location in Dallas where the area is just going to continue to get better and get stronger. Same in Austin, Houston. And I think that we can look at our brand portfolio of, say, having 12 brands. And if we want to take more space and think about putting a food hall in, we want to take less space and do a fast casual because we have a couple polished casuals. Some can afford more rent, some can't. But we can make some strategic decisions based on that for these locations. So it really puts us in a really different, kind of unique opportunity to really think strategically about the location, what's the best fit, or the other thing that FB Society is, if we find the right location, we want to create a new brand. We're always looking to do that. So it kind of puts us in a unique opportunity synergistically to take advantage of opportunities in a certain market that other organizations wouldn't be able to do.
I think the other thing, and we've done some of this, is second generation. It's not preferable, but be careful on them. I mean, they can cost you more than something new sometimes. But again, looking at like Addison, we were talking just a minute ago, Lane and I, that was Restaurant Row in 1979, and now we're all up there, regentrifying the street. And, so sometimes just make sure you do the good due diligence with the landlords, because they want you to take it as is. And usually they don't know what as is, I'm telling you. And then you find out later, broken pipes or electrical's not working or whatever. It's really critical that you do your homework to make sure, because again, you guys as brokers can get the locations, but there's more to it than just getting the location and the LOI. It's really understanding the construction side of it. And when they're pushing you to go, why can't they open in 12 months? Well, you're hearing it from three of us. We're all growing in different states across the country. We can't open in 12 months anymore. But the landlords are still thinking 12 months, and we can't do it. I mean, for a full service anyway. So I think that's, the costs are coming down, but the availability, electrical panels are a year out. If you want to build a house, you better order your electrical right now. I mean, that's how far we have to, and then we have to inventory it and sit on it. But that's the reality of where we're at. I think it's going to cure itself probably in the next 18, 24 months.
I would just add, you can only value engineer so far. We think we've all done that exercise in the last 24 months post-COVID to get costs down to where we could. I'm in a unique position where we have 56 stores. We just signed over 300 franchise units. Every single one of these will be a drive-through. So my inventory, what I have to choose from nationally, is cut, 70%. And I don't know if, you guys are out in the wild, so you see this and hear this, but cities are not drive-through friendly right now. They are pushing back. Entitlements are taking forever if we're getting them at all. And, for a concept that is completely reliant on drive-through business only, exclusively, we don't even open lobbies anymore. Those are headwinds. So I think from the drive-through side, we're anticipating costs to probably remain the same of what we've seen, and we've gotten, timber mostly, has come down, but electrical still. That was why we paid dead rent, was we were waiting for a city to connect a panel that they were waiting on from overseas. So,
Ryan, you mentioned about $1 million all in to open a unit. But what's the scale, in just general terms, Jack, of a food hall?
The scale or the economics?
Yeah. How much investment?
Oh, it's a shitload. No, it's
a metric term?
Yeah, it's a shit ton. No, it's a lot. So we're looking at especially so the model of the food halls is evolving, and it's actually fascinating. So because we're an early player in that market. We opened our first food hall in 2017. We're inspired by an overseas trip, and came back. And at the time, there weren't many food halls in the U.S., and now it's kind of exploded. And what people call a food hall could be a 7,000 square foot building with 4 stalls. And that, in my opinion, that's not a food hall. A food hall is sort of
it's a food court with a PR agent.
Yeah, exactly. and you could see there's been a lot of failures in food halls. It's really interesting. So our vision was sort of captivated by after we came back from this trip in Amsterdam, which I can't talk about the whole trip, but it was an amazing trip. And but seeing this food hall was impressive because it was called Food Holland. It was run by some local, really smart entrepreneurs who actually ran their own bars. And today, every food hall is doing that. But back in 2017, Front Burner was the only one that really captivated that idea. We sat down with the owners, talked to them, and it was really cool. But when we came back to the U.S., really at the time, Chelsea Market in New York was really and it's still an amazing food hall, but they didn't have any night business. It really died early. The LA Market downtown, if y'all been there, great food hall, but really dies at night. And what we really strategize is how to drive traffic through entertainment, and that's sort of what made our food halls a little bit different, both in Plano and in Nashville. And that's just something we really believe in and really designed to that aesthetic. In Plano, we had the unique opportunity of building this 55,000 square foot building from the ground up and really designing it the way that we felt would really kind of capture the imagination. And honestly, I think a lot of people across the country thought, we're nuts, because who would build a 55,000 square foot food hall in Plano, Texas in 2017? That really wasn't sort of something somebody would do. And but we worked with a developer who had the vision, really believed in us, and so we got excited and decided to build a 20,000 square foot restaurant next to it. So it turned into a fairly large project. And because we're gluttons for punishment, we went into Nashville and did 115,000 square foot food hall. So the economics of these, they're expensive. The way to move forward on them is, I think you need to have a model and you need to have a partner. And in talking to a lot of development partners, it's a bit of an amenity. And I know real estate people hate to hear that, but the reality of it is these are super expensive. They add an incredible amount of value if they're done properly. If they're not done properly, they could actually be the exact opposite and be a people repellent. So I think that it's a complicated business. I think we're still in the second inning of the food hall sort of cycle of how it's going to work, and I think there's tons of opportunity, but it's got a lot of moving pieces. It's a real difficult business.
So a lot of dollars at stake. Surely a group like this is heavy into the analytics of it. Three ways to use analytics. One is to confirm what you already want to do. The second is to look at unproven or untapped opportunities that you wouldn't have seen. And the third is both. So how greatly, if at all, do you rely on analytics, and what types are they?
I'm a big tech guy. I really believe that it's amazing what we can do with, everybody's got a phone in here, so the analytics are just crazy what we can get, but you still got to go see the site. I mean, you got to sit there, you got to be there, the numbers have to prove out, day parts. That's the other thing, it's shifted. Lunch. I mean, if you had a lunch business before that was 5 days a week, our downtown Denver store, you line to get in it 5 days a week. Now Monday and Fridays, there's no line to get in it. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday there is. But so those are changes too, like the size of our kitchens or, the brand, because our brand's a 7-day-a-week brand. I think it's, the analytics are super important to get to us. But then you got to really go verify the analytics, which is the human side. Like, when is the people, when are they coming? When are they eating? What's the age group? Because, we rely on all this data, but then there's the human side to it. So it's really important to make sure that you get out there and try to back up the analytics.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an abundance of information. There's also a lot of shitty information. And I think you have to be really acute at what you believe in. And we leverage a lot, but at the end of the day, I don't sign a single deal that I don't personally see, even though I'm laughed at because sometimes I only see it for 5 minutes. But I go very informed to that site. I have an idea. But, we've signed sites, and we use SiteZeus, and we've, a lot of different, and we MapZot, a couple different AI tools. But at the end of the day, I've signed deals that SiteZeus has said we're going to do $250,000, and they do 1.5. So I think the answer for me is both. And, I just got back from a trip to Tulsa, of all places, and that was where I was using it for opportunistic, a market that I wasn't originally on my radar and has low costs of, we also buy land, we acquire deals, and, half acres for $400,000, half acres for $350,000 that were over-indexing, over $1 million AUVs. So for the first time in my life, I got really excited about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so I think it's both. We also use, and I just spoke at a conference in Palm Springs last week about this, but, restaurateurs and retailers alike can lean on their vendors a lot for data. And we do that quite a bit. We use Coke and Pepsi. We're one of their actually largest accounts. You wouldn't think we would be, but we are. And we get quarterly soda consumption data across the globe. So I can tell you from zip code who's drinking more Dr. Pepper, Diet Dr. Pepper, Coke, Diet Coke, Mountain Dew, across the U.S. So that's a pretty easy one.
That would explain why your Fairview unit north of here has a lot of Dr. Pepper-based drinks.
That's right. That's very right.
I would make 2 points on this. One is it's a team effort. I think that restaurant or hospitality groups, you need to really kind of lean on their ops team to make decisions on what the revenue they really believe they can do out of units. And then I think we need to depend on our broker to really be real. For you guys, you get all kinds of bad information, exposed to it in the marketplace, and I happen that I've worked with really good brokers like Michael, and Michael said, yeah, this is what they said they do, but I know they ain't doing close to that, and that's what happens all the time is like all of a sudden you're like, oh, everyone on this street is doing 8 million. No, they're not. It's not hard to figure out. In Texas, we have access to, alcohol sales, and if you are working in Texas and it's a full-service restaurant, you're not using that information. People could easily fake what they're actually doing in revenue. That's a real number, and that, and there's other techniques and other things, and getting really trusted resources, but in my opinion, a really talented broker really actually knows what those volumes are in different markets, and they're accurate, so I think that's a really important thing.
I would just add to that, because we talked about this on our call. We may not look like the sharpest folks up here, but we know when it's bullshit. And I think it's important that when the information is coming, one of the things that I ask our team is, tell me all of the reasons why I won't like this site. I can find 20 reasons why it's right, but tell me what I don't like about it, or what I won't like about it. And I think, I've had a lot of brokers in and out of the system in the 20 years I've been doing this. You guys have a lot of years on me. But, I've kept the same tight broker community from brand to brand to brand because of ethics, integrity, honest numbers, knowing the market, knowing the demographics, and not blowing hot air. We know enough to know when it's not real.
I always love the word, everybody's killing it. And I'm like, you know how many times I've heard that? It's like, not everybody's killing it. So, we want you guys to be successful, and we want to be successful. I just think that we just got to be realistic.
We have a lot of landlords and developers in the room. We get into negotiations, and sometimes people think that some of the things we ask for are arbitrary. But what are some of the things that you absolutely have to get in a lease, and why? Or you can't do the deal?
I think so besides the obvious things, like term and rent, we're a company that ultimately we create brands, but we sell brands. And so assignments are really important to us. We're also, we're not a big company. We're a little company. We try to, turn into a big company, sell a brand or two, then turn into a small company. That's sort of our strategy. So guarantees are critical. We don't want heavy guarantees. It just weighs us down. And probably lastly is construction. Like we're not just taking, we don't want to just open a restaurant. We want to transform a space. And to be able to do that, the construction docks are just more important than ever, like what we can do. We want to put Airstream trailers on the roofs. We want to build teepees. We want to do greenhouses. We want to make experiences. And so we waste time when we get into a lease and all of a sudden somebody wants some monochromatic, ugly building that's just going to stay that color because it fits the center. We don't want to work with those people. So construction docks are probably more important to us than they've ever been.
I would think it was perfectly said, because those are the same things that we focus on. Assignment, I would say if I had to force rank, 85 to 90% of restaurateurs, retailers, small business people, when they're creating something, you see an end in sight, right? There's a transaction, there's an acquisition, there's something. So I think you have to go into some of these deals with that lens. I mean, we've transacted twice in the last 16 months. Do you know how big of a pain in the ass that's been with leases? I mean, and we'll do it again probably 2 or 3 more times the next 5 years. So I think assignment, and then I love what you said about construction docs and wanting to have a level of creativity. We're going through a little bit of a rebranding moment right now, and there's a lot of landlords that really kind of try to draw a line in the sand, and it has to be tan, stucco. It's like, what tan stucco? And I think having a level of flexibility and creativity and to make the concept cool is important, and we need brokers to be able to sell why that's important. We attract a very interesting demographic to centers, and we lean on that a lot. I mean, our target is 17 to 40-year-old women. I mean, that's 85% of our customer base. Very few brands can say that. So we lean on that when we're talking to landlords and developers is, hey, do you want, a swath of 22-year-old females here at 3:30 after yoga every single day? I mean, we will have 40 people in line, and we can do that. We've proven that out. So I think it's tapping into other opportunities that are exciting to a landlord and that are different to a landlord, so that you can get some of these other nuances in a lease that you don't typically get.
Your demographic is why I get the reaction I get when I pull up to the window.
That's fair.
I don't think I need to add much. That's pretty much.
Very good. There's also tenant reps, and this is a great group to hear from in terms of how you might solicit their business. What do you look for if you were to look for a tenant rep? And what do you expect from them? What are the deal breakers? And I think, Jack, you mentioned before, certain characteristics that you were looking for.
Yeah, I think we're looking for a partner, and we have different people for different brands. I think it's really important that understanding the brand deeply and understanding what makes it ticks and adding value to the team, giving feedback, being creative in your thinking about where it fits and where it won't fit. And sometimes, the person that really captures my attention is if the team's really going down the road in a direction, and our broker might say, well, there are some things that may give me pause about this. And so that's how to really be a value-added partner, is really contribute to the conversation of, is this going to be successful? Because it's harder than ever. So if you have a 1, a 3, a 5-unit chain and you fail at a restaurant, like, stick a fork in it. It's dead. Nobody's going to continue to open more. So I think it's really like success is predicated upon, just like in all sports and stuff. You got to whatever you thought you did a good job on last week, you got to do better the next week. So that's kind of the restaurant business.
I was just going to jump on another part of the lease. I think it's really important is the co-tenancy clause. I mean, especially when we go out to some of these areas that are green development and they tell you all these other things are coming. Well, sometimes they don't come, and you can be sitting there by yourself.
HEB is always coming.
Yeah. So that's really important. Co-tenancy is important. We rely on the community at large in these developments to service the restaurants.
And I think that's a great point. I mean, we buy a lot of, whether we're ground leasing or we're buying raw land, you really have to have a vision for 2-3 years down the road, and that's critical to know who's really coming. For me, I'm a really transparent, straight shooter, so I need somebody that beyond is passionate about the brand, and can sell the brand and represents us as part of our team. I also want somebody that is going to be very transparent, honest to me, and tell me when I'm wrong, and educate me. I think, I've always followed the kind of the critical path of hire people smarter than yourself, surround yourself with highly intelligent folks, and be humble enough to listen. And that's a hard. I mean, this is not a low blow, but that's a stretch in the brokerage world. And there's a lot of brokers out there, and you just go to ICSC. I mean, it's a lot in circulation. I could count on 2 hands. The ones that I would, lay on the sword for. So I think being able to have a conversation and really articulate, a brand like us, we've been in the business for 13 years. So when we hire a new broker or we have somebody that's going to a landlord trying to explain SWIG, who's never heard of SWIG, that first 5 minutes is critical. If they can't articulate who we are, what we do, we sound silly. and we don't get the deal. But not only do we not get that deal, we don't get consideration for future deals. We are now being passed around in that metro as, what's this concept? Everybody's picking up the phone. Have you heard from them? Do they pay their rent? I mean, I think all of those. And you really want to lean on a broker and a broker's relationship to instill confidence in a developer and a landlord. And one of my favorite things that happens here in Dallas is, our brokers will go to landlords and say, I've got a pocket deal for you. I've got a little listing a little gem. And they start selling it before even saying who we are. And by the time they get up to who we are, it's like they're ready to sign. And that's a far cry from where we were just 3 years ago. So having somebody who can get excited about the brand and it exudes in how they're pitching us to landlords and developers has been critical to our growth.
We're going to open up for questions in a second, but I was going to ask everybody if they thought next year was going to be better than this year, but I think growth plans speak to that. You wouldn't open more if you thought it was going to be a terrible year. So we have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and kick it off. So obviously, I'd love to talk about Texas all day because Texas is great. But what are some? We have brokers, landlord reps from all over the country. What are other markets outside of Texas that excite you, and why?
We like the Southeast. There's a big expansion, obviously, from the north to the south. I learned this quite a while ago, and so State Farm moved all their headquarters from the Midwest, Tempe, Arizona, Richardson, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
And Georgia. There's a reason why, and I didn't know this, but I learned it from a gentleman that runs Bob Evans now, and he said, why that is? Air conditioning. The migration south didn't happen until air conditioning happened. So, like, I'm live in Scottsdale, and the city's like 1950. That's when it was founded, because you couldn't be there without air conditioning, or you could only be there part of the year. So I think we're seeing migrations to the south with employment. Our first store in Texas is in Irving, Texas. Wells Fargo's moving their world headquarters across the street from California. So we like the Southeast. I'm a West Coast guy. I love it. I love the food, the creativity of the West Coast. It's just very challenging. More urban is challenging than suburbs. The suburbs are strong. Seattle's strong. San Francisco, I know you guys see the news, but it's still the tech capital of the world. Downtowns are tough. The urban footprints and reissuance of like offices, it's a real deal. So we like Southeast is our next area. Of course, we love Texas.
Yeah, I live in the Bay Area, so I'm well aware of what's happening. I will tell you, we're bullish on Texas and the Southeast. I mean, we're doing most of all of our franchise growth. I mean, the 402 that we have signed right now is all happening in the Southeast and Midwest. I will say I've done a lot in Texas in the last 10 years, and I've seen, from costs and inventory, and it's getting harder in Texas. So much so that even this year I've shifted units that we were really going to do 70%, 80% of next year's pipeline in Texas, and we've started to shift that out just from a cost perspective a little bit, not dramatically. I'm excited about Arizona. We're a beverage company, so we like hot weather, and our highest AUVs are in Arizona, which everybody thinks, for swig, it has to be in Utah. And I don't know how many times in the last year and a half everybody's thinking, does it work outside of Utah? It's like, it works very well outside of Utah. So we're excited about tertiary markets within Arizona and suburbs, definitely doubling down. I would love to get a nice midtown, Metro Dallas or Metro Scottsdale, Phoenix site, but we're not super excited about the West Coast. I think just labor and constraints to build. It's not builder friendly. I'm also, we like I mentioned previously, we do a lot of our own self-development. So where there are opportunities to buy dirt, SWIG can fit on a postage stamp. I mean, we go on a third of an acre if we have to. So third of an acre to a half of an acre that I can get for 300 to 600,000 anywhere in the country, we're pretty bullish, and that's typically the Southeast.
Yeah, we're a Dallas-based company, so Texas is sort of our where we sort of build a base. But we've got construction projects we just opened a restaurant in Charlotte. We've got construction project in Reston, Virginia, D.C., Orlando, Miami, and we have signed LOIs in California and in Las Vegas. So I think it depends on the brand. I mean, there's some brands that, if they have the right unit economics, they can work. And I think that there's unbelievable demand in the West Coast. I think that some brands that have gone out there, if they have the right economic model, they can really work. And so, we're approaching that slowly and tentatively, but, we primarily are in Texas and the Southeast.
How many large corporate headquarters do you think there are in a couple-mile radius around the food hall?
Substantial. Also, to John's point about Las Colinas, I mean, Las Colinas is just a brilliant area. North Texas is brilliant. I mean, just as far as the corporate customer in Dallas is just an amazing customer, and we've watched them, continue to grow. People have disposable income. It's not certainly the weather's not like California. It's not like living in Newport Beach, and it's not as fun as New York City, but cool people, affordable living generally, and great schools, and wherever you live in the burbs of Dallas, you just press the easy button. It's an easy place to live.
Toyota North America opened up just down the road from the food hall. It's improved the quality of both our sushi and our Japanese food.
Yeah, we have an Uchi actually coming into Shops of Legacy, and then another big corporate relocation is PGA coming to North Texas. So they're open now. The golf courses are unbelievable. The first huge event won't be until 2027, but what you're going to see in North Dallas is going to be amazing the next 5 years, unbelievable next 5 years.
I forgot to add, we're kind of where they are at with expansion, and Michael and I talk about this because we want to do more in Texas, but we're having to open new markets up. We had all the markets open, and then COVID hit, so I let go of my whole development arm because I couldn't afford it, so I started doing the development again because I've done it before. And now I've outsourced. We have a master broker out of Chicago, Emerging Concepts. Steve Taylor, he does great work for us, so we're looking in the Midwest. But again, we have to go to other markets and look at them because the real estate's just not, we were talking about how long we've been looking in Houston. Since the beginning, haven't been able to land the right deal in Houston. It's hard because we don't want to just do deals. We got to make them work. So we're looking in the Midwest as well. Opportunistic, Again, Nashville's hot. Everybody knows that. Can only house so many people, though. We'll see where that ends. Go ahead, Lane.
How about questions?
I don't know if this is working yet. I wanted to ask, this is really geared towards you, Ryan, a lot more probably.
What are you talking into?
This is my safety pillow that I can
Is
use.
there a beer in there? Or? Looks like a small ice chest.
It is. It's got a beer right here. Yeah. Because of construction costs, have you explored, I think, Ryan, yours probably is more applicable to this than some of the larger creative design work that you other concepts have, but the prefab or modular building to help cut costs?
It's a great question. Twice. We did modular we went double down on modular a couple of years ago. We did the Conex boxes side by side staggered, and after we did our first, 4 to 6, they proved to be about net neutral, the cost of a stick build. Now that was pre-COVID and during COVID. And the challenges with prefab is you don't have a lot of flexibility to expand, move around. You are forced into a floor plan. Since COVID, and I think honestly what happened was during COVID, everybody wanted an ADU, right? Like everybody was adding ADUs to their residences, and there was a lot of companies that entered into the modular space in the last 3 to 4 years. And we're going back into that. We actually have 2 in construction right now with 2 different vendors, one out of Phoenix and one out of Salt Lake City. That are stick build modulars, and where we can inventory, build them to 75 to 85%, keep them on inventory, ship them out to a site. The cost is, there's a little bit of cost savings, but we're really doing it for time. We're a speed play really right now. We're doing 30 units a year. How fast we can open them is really the key. And now that we're buying land, modular makes a lot of sense because we can plop them down, we can transact them a lot faster, move on to the next one. But they're still not a stick build, what I've seen. In quality, cost a little bit better, but not dramatically. We'll see if the time savings pans out. We're doing, like I said, we're just putting our feet back into it. But there's a lot of people doing it not so great, is what I've learned. And there's, just like anything, there's a small pocket of people doing it very well. But, I know for a fact, Dutch Brothers, good example. And I know they've had some pain points. I talk to those guys pretty frequently, and they've gone back to a lot of stick build from modular. So I think it just depends on who you're using, where you're going, and what your objective is.
What's your comp sales 2023 versus 2022, and what are you forecasting for 2024?
You want to sign an NDA? No, I'm just kidding. No, so we've had a banner year for us. I can tell you what we budgeted for 2023 was low single-digit growth, 3%, 2.5%, 3%, and we'll hit 8% this year. And the key, though, is we look at transactions, and we actually did not see a transaction decline this year like a lot of folks did. We were net neutral to low single-digit increases, so we're grateful, and knock on wood. Next year, I will tell you, because I'm in budgeting right now for 24, and I'm not saying this because I'm not an optimistic person, but we are being more conservative than we were for 23. We're not slowing down growth or deals, but we don't see the cost of capital really changing until closer to the election. And for us, we self-fund, but we also are smart with capital, and we use debt facilities to grow. And if those don't pencil well, then it stagnates growth a little bit. So I would say for us, we'll be a sub 5% growth story. If we are net neutral or anything above that, that's a huge win for us next year.
I think that's interesting because we've all been hedging, like, when are we really back from COVID? January was up like 18% in 1 month. It doesn't happen. It won't happen again. I don't know why I did it. We always know January slows down, and it went up. So it's been a rocky road from, year over year comps. So I believe that we're finally in Q4 of this year, like as normal as possible. And it kind of depends where you're from, but in Texas, Arizona, the mask thing was not as long as the West Coast for sure. There's still folks out there driving around. We were talking about it in their car by themselves with masks on. So, but I think that's society too, like getting back to normal for kids. And, it's not just that, it's work from home. It's all this together that's creating this kind of roller coaster ride. 2022 was strong. 23 was really strong, and then it kind of softened. And the weather, you guys heard the guy talking about, I'm in Arizona and Texas. I'm like, I always worried about snow or too much rain. Now we're worried about 90 days of 120 degrees in Arizona. It gets long and tired. And in Texas, we have these great patios we built. We couldn't use them. It was flat out too hot. All your events up there, right?
Oh, yeah.
They took them all out. You guys are going to see their food all on my deal at Grandscape. We had events every weekend that would drive thousands of people at these places. No one's going out when it's 110 down here as far as outside. So I think we're going to see more normalization. And the other thing you should know is price. We've all had to take price strategically. And I'm a stickler, like I can't go in and pay $25 for a hamburger. I don't care where it's at. I can afford it, but it just doesn't sit well in my stomach. So, we've been inching strategically because the consumer will vote with their dollars if you jump up too far, too fast. And so the comps, that's a good question. You got to really get into like store visits and traffic, because traffic's been down in the full service in the last 6 months. We think it's going to be Q4, it's going to be better than last year because it was election year. It was kind of wonky last year in Q4. And then next year's another election year. So we're in that 2%, but we're probably raising price 3 to 5% to maintain the 2%. I don't know. How about with you guys?
John, exactly the same. We had a double digit 22, 23 just came out of the gun like, man, it's going to be an awesome year. And kind of went flat.
CEO.
Yeah, it went flat. And so so we will finish the year in positive comp, but not to where we started the year for sure. And some of the things that you mentioned are just so right on the trend of prices, and I think that there's going to be winners and losers in this whole price thing, because I think some of my contemporaries in the restaurant business just think that the guest is going to pay no matter what, and maybe they did coming out of COVID, but that's not the situation today. And so we have a huge agenda. It's kind of called, it's all built around this idea of connections over transactions. And I just think that who values the consumer and values their business and treats them better and actually just doesn't continue to pile on cost to them, because it's all the stupid stuff. It's like, somebody changes an order, so you add a couple bucks, and it just enough of that, and whiskey prices go up, so you add more to that. You can't get these tequilas, we can charge double. Well, there's an end to that, and I just think that it's here. So
I would just add to the one thing, COVID was, I don't even like to say the word COVID anymore. I feel like we've talked about it to death. But one of the good things that came from COVID, I think, is people's unit economics were forced to get healthier. You had to take a look at your business and figure out, okay, we are in a tough spot. How are we going to salvage this and make our unit economics, our SLEBITDA, our EBITDA, a healthy business? And there was a lot of businesses, as you know, went the wayside in the last 3 to 4 years. And there's a lot of businesses that came out of that healthier and better. So though we may not be, saying we're going to comp 8, 7, 8, 10% next year, I can confidently tell you that our AUVs and our unit economics on a P&L basis are the best they've ever been in 13 years. And when you kick off, you're trying to grow from EBITDA and profits from a four-wall contribution, that's a good feeling going into a new year, knowing that you're kicking off a nice net contribution to the business and the balance sheet.
And just real quick on that note, because you should know this too, because it's not top line. We don't bank top line. So all of us had high food costs last year. I think we were 27 and we're used to running 20, it's millions. I chose not to get I'll take the hit and keep the business before I'm going to price myself out. Now we're back down to 24. So we're making more money this year on flat to just above last year. So remember, if we do our job, we squeeze the middle before we pass the price on doubling the tequilas or whatever else, We've all had the $25 drink is not that good, I'm sorry. It's just hard. Because you guys know what it costs. It costs you $25 for a liter. People are charging $25 for a cocktail. It's unbelievable. Somebody had a...
Yeah, Jack, you made a comment about adding on additional costs to things and the consumer starting to notice. I think there's also been a lot of talk about tipping, right? With COVID, people feeling for the restaurant workers. But what we also saw was a lot of veterans of the restaurant industry got out of it, those top servers that you always do, and that level of service. How are you guys combating that with trying to bring in a new wave of those servers with kind of the completed veteran core?
We doubled down on training. So we're really big believers in, we've gone to this whole training platform of gamification. There's no printed materials anymore. It's on every server's phone. It's all in a way of almost like a competition between them to really learn the material and become experts, because you almost have to be.
Is that One Dine?
Yeah, One Huddle. One Huddle. which I'm also an investor in, by the but it's really, it's the way to go. If you can create a dynamic training atmosphere, I just think that that's how you do it. You can't just go out and try to hire veteran servers. It's a gamble. But if you actually can create the culture internally of really valuing training and really creating a culture of really valuing your guests and really getting your team to rally around that, I think that's how you actually build something organic and special today.
I'm getting the wrap-up signal, so really want to thank everyone, the panel. This has been great. I hope you guys have enjoyed it.